Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another comic book review. Today we're going to be looking at Ultimate Spider-Man number 4 by Jonathan Hickman. This case, the artwork is not by Chichetto, it's by David Messina, and he does a good job at approximating Chichetto's artwork or art style, but there is a certain, identifiable quality about it that is significantly different from the artwork of the first 3 issues, which in some sense is a bit disappointing. In another sense, it makes complete sense because this is basically a talking head issue. Like, there's no action here. There's action and tension, but it's not due to physical action or fights, right? It's about how the characters are interacting. And I think that David Messina does a good job with that, right? So it makes sense to allow Chichetto to have a break, basically to kind of recharge, maybe do something else for a while, or maybe just so he can take longer with the next issue. And either way is fine. I don't think there's a problem. And I don't think the artwork is significantly different to the point that anyone is going to be upset about it. Like, it's not that, like, different, right? But, you know, it's noticeable if you kind of take a little bit of time to kind of look at it, right? But this issue was quite good. I'm actually really, really happy with it. And it's kind of surprising because when you read a superhero comic, in my opinion, you're usually just reading it for, like, the ease of following it. Like, you know, how simple it is to just kind of have a pull list, just go to the comic book store once in a while, pick up the books, and then just kind of read them kind of quickly and just kind of feel, you know, enjoyment for a couple minutes, right? And they rarely really do anything all that exciting or, you know, super enticing, right? Like, sometimes they do, but not necessarily. And I think mostly the books that are really good at doing the enticing and the interesting storytelling are the ones that are not basic superhero fare. They're not the big 2, right? But in this case, it is one of the big 2. It is a superhero story. And yet, even though there was no action in this issue, I was really, really invested in it. I was really, happy with it. I finished the issue and I was hyped. I had a little bit of a goosebump going on. I was like, dude, this is awesome. This is great. And I'm not really sure why. I think it's because the tension of how the characters were kind of talking to each other and the way that the characters were kind of approaching, you know, verbal violence, but then kind of retreating into friendliness. And then there was this kind of like looming idea of like the secret. And then because you know who these characters are, you kind of add this level of like, oh, is this going to happen? Like, what the hell? Like, based on the fact that, you know, that Gwen Stacy was another one of Peter's girlfriends, that she died. You know that, you know, Peter and Harry are Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. Is the Green Goblin actually bad? You know, what's going on with Harry? You know, is Harry going to steal MJ? You know, what is going on here? What's going to happen? Like, all of that stuff, even though it's not necessarily actually relevant to this book and the story that this book is telling, all of that adds in, right? And I think that this is a really interesting way of working with the 2 kind of major constraints of this series, which are, it's not the main universe. You know these characters, but you don't know them because it's a new retelling, right? And so all of those elements kind of work really nicely in this issue to really make you feel invested and interested in what's happening, right? So I was really hyped when I read it, even though ultimately what happens here is just a dinner conversation between 2 sets of partners that are really quite different and that really probably are not going to be friends, but somehow ended up having to have these interactions and might actually end up being better for it, right? So it's quite interesting. There's a lot of tension between MJ and Gwen. Specifically, I thought that there was a lot of like, are they gonna fight? Are they gonna, you know, keep going and be friendly? Are they gonna help each other? Are they gonna, you know, do something to piss each other off? Like, I don't know. And then the kind of aspect of like Peter and Harry kind of trying to play referee, try to keep it civil, but then also having their own sort of tension where when the girls leave for a moment, and then everything turns out to be fine with them and they actually kind of team up to do something, Peter and Harry have this conversation where it's like, have you told her? No. Why? What's wrong with you? I told my wife immediately, right? And I'll tell you which one's which in a bit. Basically, Harry was the one that told Gwen, and Peter has not told MJ, or at least it seems like he hasn't. And I think he hasn't because I don't think things can go right for Peter when he is Spider-Man. So, you know, something has to give here at some point. And it's probably going to be his relationship with MJ. because it's kind of lulling us into this false sense of security before it kind of like unleashes this crazy thing that's going to happen, right? But I really enjoyed that aspect. I really enjoyed the kind of world building that was happening with MJ and Gwen, in the sense that Gwen is this like, powerful lady. She's this kind of like badass CEO chick, and MJ is not necessarily the same, but she has kind of a similar energy because she's like a self-employed go-getter. She's kind of making sure that she's making her own thing work, and she's using this opportunity that Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson are launching a new paper as a way for her to develop her clientele and grow her new business, right? And so this is kind of where Gwen and MJ kind of find a connection, where Gwen asks MJ to help her use the paper, which is the name of J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben's new paper or website or news outlet, to create some sort of discontent by promoting news that maybe wouldn't be able to be promoted otherwise. And so that's quite interesting. And the kind of funny thing about this whole issue was that the whole time that they're all eating dinner, I'm very focused on what's happening, and I'm constantly thinking the whole time that I'm reading this: are they gonna fuck or are they gonna fight? Like, there was this really interesting, palpable like tension between these four characters that was really, really interesting. And it almost felt like they're all gonna murder each other right now, or they're all gonna start an orgy in this restaurant, and it was hilarious. Like I had this realization like after reading it, and I started laughing because it just looked, or it was such a ridiculous idea, right? So hopefully you guys had something similar to that happening, because I think it's really funny and really interesting that, Hickman was able to make this sort of scene and this whole issue that just is this, this dinner table, so compelling and interesting, right? So, at the end of it, MJ and Peter are like, yeah, we should never do that again. That was way too stressful, and I agree. But also, it's kind of interesting because you don't know what's going to happen next. Because, the story basically takes a break here to kind of decompress a little bit, introduce new characters, and there's kind of a new jumping on point, right? Like, technically, the first 3 issues were like the introduction arc, where, in the manga, this is basically when we learn the main character's name, we learn a bit of their basic backstory, and then we let them get their powers, right? It's the same as if you read My Hero Academia and you read the first volume. The ending of the introduction arc is basically when All Might tells Midoriya, you too can be a hero, and in this case, the end of this arc was Harry being like, we can be partners in this, crime fighting, right? So this 4th issue is kind of like a transitionary chapter from, the first arc into the second arc, and I'm very curious to see where that goes, because I don't really feel like we knew what the heck was going to happen. Like, there are some ideas, right? Like, basically, the paper is going to be more important, and it's probably going to report positively on Peter and Harry, and kind of start this this like revolution within the city over kind of exposing the bad guys, right? But I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. So overall, very interested in this issue. I thought it was great. What did you guys think? Let me know down in the comments, and thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.